Today I'm really looking at the fact that you've got explosive growth happening all around the world, particularly outside the developed countries. And you've also got explosive growth happening in internet, which is creating a whole lot of connectivity in both conversations and economies and trade that is really changing how globalization is being looked at. My key takeaway is that most companies are underprepared for it, even if they've been global for over 100 years. They're not used to having this kind of level of advocacy happening at a local level, which is going to confront their brands and their reputations in multiple markets around the world. Well, for a start, if you look, one of the biggest single changes is language. So English has been the dominant language, say, online, and the English media has been the dominant media relative to moving stories around the world. So when people talk about the 24/7 news cycle, it was 24/7 mainly in English with some other languages happening. Well, what you're seeing is now the enormous rise of, say, Chinese on the internet, Hindi on the internet. You're seeing some of these very important languages move onto the internet and creating other communities of interest, which leads to problems moving out or problems moving in. So I think that's the biggest single change, is language on the internet. Well, there's many things. I mean, there's some very tactical things they can do, and then there's some strategic questions they've got to answer. The tactical things that they're really going to do is, one is they've got to listen better. Most PR professionals tend to be listening in one market rather than listening to multiple markets, and they tend to be listening relative to their specific brand or an issue they may be engaged on. They're not looking at the totality of the conversations taking place that could affect them going forward. So I think you're seeing companies still in a very reactive and a responsive stage to both issues and opportunities emerging around the world. They're not really planning or predicting or preparing for them. So I think that's a very tactical response to what's happening around the world. I think the other tactical dimension is that you do need to connect with what you say and what you do, because never before you will be caught out. If you are basically doing something that's different to what you're saying you're going to do, if you have a policy that's different to how you actually behave in those markets, if you have different kinds of standards relative to, say, supply chain or how you treat employees in one market versus another, those things are going to be exposed. They're under increasing scrutiny. So you need to continually map and audit the delta between what is you aspire to be and what you are now, and what you're saying about yourself now. And I think that kind of mapping also informs the planning process that communications professionals can deal with. At a more strategic level, and this is something that communications professionals need to advocate for, their success will be interesting to see, is that the concept of having siloed stakeholder relations becomes almost irrelevant. The issue that you have investor relations over here, and maybe employee relations here, or community relations over there, and media relations there, and marketing and corporate are two different places, it's rendered obsolete. The new connected world doesn't know these borders. They're just traditional organizational borders. And they really probably don't have a relevance going forward. They're just how large companies manage complex relations. But the collision of all these stakeholders makes that irrelevant. So I think the huge strategic challenge is, how do you deal in this connected world? How do you manage and organize yourself to respond? And already you're starting to see a fault line between the marketing profession and, say, the communications profession, where the marketing profession is saying, hey, we need to own communications. It can't be separate to us. It's almost like after 80 years, the marketing profession has woken up and said, PR is really important, and we want it. And so you're already starting to see these borders now being chipped away, and that's the strategic challenge to communicators. No, I just think that it's great that the public relations industry is dealing with a lot of these issues, because I think that they've been ignoring them for a long time. I do have a great concern that relative to social media and participation marketing, the kind of conversation generating thing that we do, is that the PR industry's kind of abandoned it. They talk about it, but they're not actively involved in it. And so I do think that there's still a huge opportunity from talking about it to doing something about it. And I'll be interested to see what comes out of the back of this conference on that.